Hey, what's going on, guys? Let's do another late night rambles before I go to bed. And make no mistake, these are ramblings. That is all this is. They're not well thought out. I have not revisited these films recently. I'm just going off the top of my head thinking about movies that I think are misunderstood, underrated. You know the drill. Let's get into it. Let's talk about The Crow, City of Angels. Why all the hate? I don't get it. I do not understand why people hate this movie so much. It was hated right out of the gates. It is still hated to this day. Now, I can understand the hate for it way back in '96 when it came out, because it was only 2 years after The Crow had come out, and too soon. I get it. Brandon Lee had tragically died 2 years earlier, and people weren't over it, and they weren't ready for another Crow without him. Nevertheless, the studio went ahead and made a new Crow, and what we got, I think, is perfectly good. I think it is a great sequel. You know, it had a lot to live up to, and I think it did live up to it, and I think it was very audacious in many ways because it did not try to replicate the original one. I think that's its greatest strength. Maybe that pissed a lot of people off. It wasn't a black, sort of gothic comic book story. It was much more of a gritty, grungy kind of punk movie. Its tones were more yellows and greens, and there's a lot of haze and smoke, and it just has an entirely different aesthetic, which to me is very appealing. That is what drew me to it in the first place back in those days. Don't get me wrong, I think The Crow is the masterpiece. The first one is, it's unrivaled, but if you're going to do a sequel, I think this is a pretty fucking good one. But hey, according to nearly everybody, I'm wrong. So I don't know. What do you think? So Alex Proyas never came back for this one, justifiably so. Instead, they got a guy called Tim Pope, a music video director who had done hundreds of music videos, some of the most famous music videos of all time. He did nearly every single video for The Cure, a bunch of other artists. Very, very savvy, stylish kind of filmmaker. And back in the 90s, they were the kind of guys that were rising up and doing this kind of stuff. And I think he did a great job on this one. It was also written by David S. Goyer, who a lot of people will know went on to do classics like Blade. Far out. I'm losing track. What is it? Batman Begins. I think he did Dark Knight as well. Man of Steel. And interestingly, he did Dark City. And then Dark City, of course, was directed by Alex Proyas, director of the first Crow. So that is a really strange connection there. And I do often wonder what Alex Proyas thinks of City of Angels. I can't have a connection to him. I'd love to ask him. Maybe I should. He's been on the show. Maybe we can get him back to pick his brain about stuff like that. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. Let's get into the story really, really quickly. We won't get into the nitty-gritty of it, but it's The Crow. It's a rehash of what the original was, essentially. It is about a man, he's a mechanic, played by Vincent Perez, who witnesses a gangland murder, and he is killed in turn along with his son because he witnessed said murder. And that's the crux of it. He comes back for vengeance in the name of his son. You know the drill. So I like that they flipped that. It wasn't a wife that he was coming back as a son. But it didn't resonate with people. Clearly, it didn't resonate with people. I think Vincent Perez is a really good addition to the franchise. It became a franchise. The studio, I believe, hired him because he resembled Brandon Lee. I think he's completely different. I think he has a different personality. His look is a little bit different. Some similarities. I think he does a really great job of it. And it just works in other ways. Like I said earlier, the tones are different and the shift. And soundtrack. Let's start on the soundtrack. This is an amazing soundtrack, one that I gravitated towards very much when I was in my late teens. You had Stevie Nicks, PJ Harvey, you had Tricky in there, you had Korn. It was just a fully loaded sort of timestamp of an album, very 90s. That was back when the Matrix album came out, and there was all this fucking great music, and soundtracks were really big at the time, and this one was good. Anyway, look, I am rambling. I don't understand the hate. I think that if this film was a standalone film, if there was no Crow, if there was no original Crow, this was the original Crow, I think it would be much more favourably received. I think people would really dig it. And I implore everybody just to go back and watch City of Angels and see for yourself. Reappraisal, people. Reappraisal. I'd love to know what you think. Drop a comment. Are you on my side with this? Is it a really fun, effective standalone sequel, or is it a piece of shit? I don't know. I also think that Vincent Perez is the only other cool-looking crow. I think all of the other crows look stupid, particularly Edward Furlong in the fourth one, and Bill Skarsgård in the new one. I didn't dig that very much. Third guy, it was alright. That was a missed opportunity, that film, but you know, in order of preference, 1, 2, and 3, and then everything else is shit. Everything else is shit. Anyway, right. Thanks for putting up with me. It's time for bed. Maybe I'll catch you on the next one if I do the next one.